All right, it's time to make a unit block. We've seen these before. The reason why I use these is just because they're all done in specific measurements, and I kind of like to stress making things to scale if possible. And these are very easy to create for beginning. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we have 3.5 centimeters by 7 centimeters. It looks like it's a little bigger than 7, but that's just perspective distortion from a camera lens. So let's go ahead and get started. So we know we use centimeters, and so I'll go ahead and I'm going to change all these to 3.5. So it's a box still, but then we'll change the height to 7. There we go. So now we've got our basic unit block. And this is going to be a really easy model to do. So what you can do is you can kind of look at it off to the side. If you want to bring in a reference plane, you can. But I'm just going to go to edges. And in this case, I can select all the edges because they all need to be beveled. And we're just going to go ahead and hit this little button there. It says bevel. And the bevel is a bit much, so let's back it off a little bit. Change the segments to 2. And if I go ahead and bring my picture back up, I can kind of, let's see if we can minimize this and drag this off. We'll kind of just make this smaller and see if this looks good. Yeah, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. Okay, that's good. So let's just grab all the faces, and we'll go ahead and do mesh display, soften edge. That will go ahead and make it look nice and smooth. So now when we look at it, yeah, it looks just kind of like that unit block. So this tutorial is more about putting on some materials and doing some UVs. So let's go ahead and take a look at what our UVs look like. And we've got this little workspace up here. I'm going to change that to the UV editing. And this UV editing workspace is set up very nice for doing UVs. That's what it's made for. Redundant, sorry. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this. So basically, when you make a box, let me make a new one. So let's make a box. Let's hide that for a second. You get this layout for the UVs. And if you haven't learned so much about UVs yet, but basically this 3D space, this is a 2D representation. So somewhere, let's go ahead and grab a UV. So somewhere on here you can see like this edge right here corresponds to these two edges. So this is the one edge, and then it's connected to the other edge right here. So basically, if we put 2D pixels on here, like let's say the pixels are going along the edge here, it should show up over here in the 3D space. And that's basically UVs. Now, there'll be more to it, but for this tutorial, we're just going to kind of keep it simple and learn just the basic moves that we need to do. So we can get rid of this box. That was just for example, and let's get our outliner out, and we'll hit Shift H. I hit Control H before to hide that, but let's bring it back out. We don't need the outliner at this moment. So when you're looking at this, it looks kind of funky because we put these bevels in here, but Maya didn't actually the UVs aren't exactly matching how Maya does the UVs, or I should say how they are in the 3D. So Maya kept like the straight edges, but realistically we need to have like this little gradient or this little let's say relaxation to show how that's curved. So if I grab everything, just like double click on the faces, I can go to this unfold right here, and I can go and just do an unfold. Now I want to show something here. I'm going to hold Control and click on that. Actually, that's right, this doesn't work for that, so we'll have to go to the tools here. Unfold, go to the settings, and it came off on my other screen. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I say reset settings. Okay, so it says unfold 3D, and then it has legacy. Okay, so legacy is the old way. That still works, but the unfold 3D is pretty good, so you probably want to use that. But sometimes you'll go to do this and you won't see the unfold 3D, and the reason why is sometimes you have to go to Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager, and you have to turn it on. It's not always checked on. So unfold 3D, load, and auto load. Make sure these two are checked, and then you can just hit close. So if you don't see that up there. So anyway, just want to throw that out there. So I'm going to just hit apply, and you're going to see what happens. So you can see now, like, it kind of put like that little curvature and it better matches what's going on here. The problem with this though is that I wouldn't actually lay it out just like this. I would actually break out some edges. So I'm going to double click on this edge, and I'm going to go to cut and sew, and I will cut that so it breaks it apart. You'll see the seam got thicker. So, and then I'm going to do the same thing here and say, well, actually, maybe we don't need to do that one. We'll leave that one for now. So I'm going to go here and select these edges. And because I cut this down here, if I go to sew, it should bring this guy and sew it over to here. So I'm going to hit stitch together, or stitch together is actually what I meant to say. And yeah, so I do want to pull this one off. So, oops, double click, I'm going to hit cut, and then I'll come up here, or wherever that's connected to. Let's see. We'll do it this way. So actually we have to use this one right here. I just want these to be across from each other. Doesn't really matter that much in this case, but I just like to keep it, you know, nice and neat. That's just me. So I'm going to unfold. Okay, so now if you watch what happened right there, I'll just undo that. I hit unfold again. You see it straighten out a little bit more. It has an easier time solving the unfold if you have things laid out in a more logical fashion. Now, this is probably how I would lay this out if I didn't have a texture for it already, but I do have a texture for it. So I'm actually going to fix this to a texture really soon here. Let me do this orient shells. And you can see when I hit orient shells, it's straighten it out. You could also try to adjust it by hand, but this usually does the job. So if you want to straighten it out like that. Okay, so now we're going to throw a texture on here, which I've already pre-made, and I'll give it to you guys. But that texture is going to allow us to see basically like this thing as a wooden block. It'll make it a lot more convincing. So let's go ahead, and you can have all the faces selected, or you can just select the object and go assign new material. And all my boxes keep popping off on my other side of my computer screens here, so I have to pull them in. And what I'll do is I'll just make a blend. That's fine. And let's do this too. Let's go, let's delete the history while we're at that. Edit, delete by type, history, and, or, you know, I have a button for it up here somewhere. Anyway, so we can see that blend. I like to name my materials M underscore, we'll say unit block. So that M just notifies me that it's a material. Anything that's named M underscore means it's a material. It's a good thing to stay organized. And you know what? I'm gonna go into my color swatch here, but I haven't set my project yet. If you notice, I started building and I didn't set my project. So why don't we do that? I'm gonna go File, Set Project, and of course it pops up on my other screen. And I'm gonna set it to my CGT 116 set. And now that that's set, if I go File, Save As, Save Scene As, pulling everything over, and then I could just say unit underscore block 01. And what I usually do is I'll usually organize this by week, and I think this is a week 5, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll just say Save As. Okay, so now I got that saved. And so now in my source image folder for my, you know, I just set my project. So if I go into my color here, it will automatically, when I go to load a file, it will bring me into my source images for CGT 116. So I knew to put my texture in here. You can see I have a whole bunch of them, but this will work. So I can just use this. Actually I have the PNG, which should be a little bit nicer. So PNG's got less compression. So all right, so we just put the PNG on there, but we haven't, well actually we did assign it, so I forgot, yeah. So we did assign it. So we don't see it yet because I have to hit 6 on my keyboard. And now you start seeing that representation of where this texture is hitting these UVs. Now obviously it looks weird because we haven't laid it out right. And it'll actually wrap. So once it gets down to this line right here, it'll start over. So that's what's happening right here. Okay, so let's do this. Let's just take, we're gonna take this off and this off, and we'll cut those off because you'll see what I'm gonna do here in a second. go back to my UV kit, so cut, and we'll take these faces. I'm going to do another unfold, see if it straightens out a little bit more. I'm going to grab everything and just rotate it. So I hold J to snap and just rotate it like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and just do a scale. And what I want to do is I want to scale this so it's just fitting inside of this area here. Let's see, that's pretty close. Yeah, that's pretty good. That should be all right. If you get it, actually, I'm not sure if I tiled these or not, but I might have tiled this edge with this edge, and if I did do that, then these would actually wrap perfectly. So now that I've scaled all those together, I can just move these to this little area here because these are kind of like the bookends, and I definitely want to do another unfold on these. You can see they look better now. So, and then these again, I'm gonna go ahead and scale these in. So scale them down a little bit so they fit inside these areas that we have. Let's just do an orient shell. There we go. Straighten it out a little bit. And this is where you want to be careful. Make sure you're not going onto that black edge, because otherwise, so if it was over a little bit like that, you would see, where is that? I don't see it. I should see it. Oh yeah, there it is. It's just hard to see. You'd see that right there, a little black edge. We don't want that, so move it over a little bit. Okay, so that's a really quick tutorial. It's been about a little over 10 minutes, 12 minutes almost, on just unwrapping one of these and making a unit block. Now, there's so much more that can go into this, but I just wanted to kind of like push through in a fast fashion so you guys can see how this would be done. And now we can turn off the wireframe or just deselect it so you can kind of see what this thing looks like. You can put a bump map on this, spec map. These are all things we'll talk about more later, but to make it look more realistic, of course. But just if you want to play with the material a little bit, so we can select this, and let's go back to our regular modeling classic, and I'll hit Control A so I can get my attribute editor, and you can see, let's delete the history again. Where's my special tools? Edit delete by type, so it's Alt Shift D. Sometimes I forget the hotkeys. But anyway, the reason why I keep deleting the history is because up in my attribute editor, it gets rid of all the extra tabs and just leaves like the essential stuff. So here's the material. And my last thing I want to do is I'm just going to drop the specularity. So I'm just going to drop that down, or maybe even just make this a little bit more like a wide diffuse, so it doesn't look so shiny, because that's not very realistic to what these things look like. So we'll do something like that. So almost everything really has some kind of specularity, but sometimes it's very, very, very diffuse and you don't really notice it too much. Specularity is like a fake way of doing reflection. Anyway, so that's a unit block. So for this week, you just need to do this one. Make sure you get the texture on it. Look at the website, because I've got links to the texture. And you guys, I also have it in my Flickr page too, and I think that's in the outline. So if you look at that, you'll find these things, and I think it's also in Blackboard. So go ahead and just make one block, and then in the following week we'll make the rest of the blocks. But I'm going to make you guys kind of figure that out on your own. I'm going to show you one block that I made, and then you guys are going to have to figure out how to make the rest of the blocks. Remember the units, make sure it's the right size, and that'll be good. Okay, thanks for watching.